I'm Misty, the editor-in-chief of On the Bit magazine, and today we're going to be discussing the first book in our summer 2025 series, Horses Adored and Men Endured by Susan Friedland. As a disclaimer, this is a book discussion. This is not a book review, so if you haven't already read the book, go do that first and then come back and tell us what your thoughts are. You can do that in the comments below. This is a rolling book discussion, so you can come back anytime and participate whenever you want. This season, the read section of our magazine is sponsored by Taborton Equine Books, so thank you so much to Taborton for sponsoring us. If you haven't already ordered your copy of Horses Adored, I would go to Taborton right now and grab that. You can go to readriderepeat.com and you can put it in the search engine and it'll come right up for you. Could you buy this book from Amazon? Absolutely. Do you want to line the pockets of a billionaire, or do you want to support a small business? If the answer is support a small business, which I hope that it is, then please go check Taborton out and grab your book there. Go for the small business. They always appreciate it more. Also, if you haven't already seen it, our summer issue right here, it's so beautiful. It's on sale right now at our website, onthebitmagazine.com. We are a positive-based publication, so we like to publish stories about people just like you. Anything that is positive, encouraging, funny, all the things that some people just don't get enough of in our industry. So that is what we like to do, and that's the type of stories that we like to push. So if you would like a copy, go head over to our website and check it out. This is the summer 2025 issue. And then there is our read section for the summer 2025. There is Susan's book, and that's the one that we're going to be discussing today. As a rule, I go chapter by chapter as I read the book. I type out my thoughts as I'm going along. So these are just my thoughts, and I'll be looking down at my computer quite a bit just to kind of go through the thoughts that I wrote out. If you'd like to share your own, again, you can do that in the comments anytime you've read the book. Okay, chapter 1, Horses Adored and Men Endured. We start the book off with Susan talking about what sounds like the absolute worst date ever. You get set up with somebody you have zero chemistry with and still try to make the best of it, even though you absolutely know that it's going to go nowhere. We all have one of those stories. She mentally takes herself out of it by daydreaming about riding her horse. And I feel like you're a true horse girl if you've done this at one point or another, whether it's on a bad day or if you're in the car, you know, kind of picturing yourself riding your horse alongside the car. That was pretty much what I always did. Let me know what your worst date story is. Worst date story for me. I was set up on a date with a guy that someone at my church knew that she worked with. Our date was a group date with a bunch of friends, which included a friend that had asked me out multiple times. So it was a little awkward. My friend that had kept asking me out, I had said no because I valued our friendship and I didn't want to mess it up. So here I am trying to get to know this guy that I had nothing in common with and didn't find attractive at all, while the guy that had asked me out multiple times had to endure watching us on our date. Needless to say, I didn't end up with the guy I dated and actually ended up dating and marrying the guy that patiently waited for me to come to my senses and see how wonderful he was. But that was an awkward date, to say the least. So yeah, I would love to hear what your worst date story is. In chapter 2, we start to learn about the beginnings of the author's horse obsession. I honestly don't know what started mine. I've loved horses for as long as I can remember, and I liked reading this chapter that I could put myself right into her shoes as I remembered galloping around in my own yard, shoestring reins in hand, jumping plants, and just being a horse. My first real ride absolutely sealed the deal for me, and I contracted my own case of horse fever. I'm glad they haven't found a cure for it yet. In chapter 3, I thought the horse hope chest was so cute. Such a cute idea. My horse hope chest was actually a stall in the lean-to garage that we had in our backyard. I remember working hard to clean out every inch so that when my parents were finally able to afford a horse, I'd have the perfect spot ready and waiting. But unfortunately for me, that moment didn't come until several years later, but the idea was still the same. Although, kind of had my dreams crushed a little bit when they started parking the car in that spot. But yeah, I thought the horse hope chest was such a cute idea. And it's actually such a great idea because if you're super obsessed with horses and you start putting all the little things in there, eventually, you know, you're eventually going to get one. You just are. You're going to have all the things ready and waiting for you little by little because horses are expensive. I mean, the act of buying the actual horse is not the expensive part. It's all the extra stuff that goes with it. So if you accumulate it a little at a time, you're ready. Did anybody else get Footloose vibes whenever Susan was talking about going to prom? I've been to 3 proms and I can say that I'm so glad that they were boring for the most part. I have had food poisoning before and there is no way I would wish that on my worst enemy. But I also would not try to endure dancing with somebody for the rest of the night if I just wanted to put myself in the fetal position. Steve doesn't sound very smart though. He may have thought that Susan faked being sick to get out of kissing him at the end of their prom date, but what girl would have faked being sick to get out of going to Six Flags? I mean, if he was bright, he would have figured out that she was actually sick and not been awkward about it. Sounds like she dodged a bullet there to me. In chapter 5, riding a horse through an orchard sounds so dreamy. As kids, we don't really deserve the amazing people that allow us to use their horses when we don't have ones of our own, despite the fact that we're always sneaky in some way or another or bend and stretch things to fit our own agenda. This chapter reminded me of when I was a kid. I had no horse, but I had a friend who did. I befriended a lot of friends who did. As I went along and we moved and all the things, I always somehow ended up with a horse friend. At one point, her mother had hired my sister to babysit while she went out one weekend evening. Her number 1 rule, no one rides when she's not home, which as an adult is completely fair. Bad things can happen. Nobody's there that can drive a car. I mean, my sister was young enough, I think she was maybe 15 at the time. So she was relatively responsible, but she wasn't old enough to drive a car. So that, you know, that rule makes sense. Fair enough. Well, we had convinced my sister that she could get on and just sit on the horse. So you're not technically riding, you're just sitting on it. So we helped her get on. And this was kind of like at the end of the night. And we were in the barn, we were in the stall. So we thought, what could happen? Come on. So we finally convinced her to get on and just sit on the horse. And as she was sitting there, my friend's mother, who came back from her date that we didn't hear, pulled in the driveway, stormed into the barn yelling something about butts and grass, if you catch my drift. We were promptly sent home, but eventually she forgave us enough that my sister was still hired occasionally to babysit, learning her lesson to not step foot in the barn. And I was allowed to come over and ride. Kids are crafty and sneaky when they want something. Honestly, I just loved horses so much, and I just wanted my sister to see how wonderful they were. And, you know, being an adult, I took her to a dressage show, and there was this lady doing tempi changes in the warm-up arena, and I was like, oh my gosh, look, 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 now she's doing this. Oh, look, now she's doing that. And my sister's on her phone like, uh-huh, uh-huh. So she didn't catch the horse bug, but that's okay. In chapter 6, if you're a true horse girl, especially one who doesn't have a horse, you will literally seek out any and all horse people that have horses so you can ride. This is an unspoken truth among horseless horse girls. That was me for the longest time in my life. I can't help but be jealous of Susan's luck when she was a kid, finding not only a lady who would let her ride her horses, but also make friends with other little girls who loved riding as much as she did. The adventures that they had sound like an absolute dream and make me want to be a kid again, or at least to find some women my own age that are willing to look crazy in order to have a little fun with horses. When Susan says, we must have been a sight to behold, soaked hair, swimsuit clad, trotting along the road on our black bay and chestnut horses. It was supremely fun, but not at all glamorous, no matter what the advertisements in women's magazines try to depict, with skinny models on horseback. My first thought was not about looking snazzy like a model, but more along the lines of, man, that sounds like absolute heaven on earth. As a kid, as an adult, anytime. That sounds fun. Now I go into part 2, novice rider, novice dater. In chapter 7, Susan's parents were wise. They knew that the real cost of having a horse is not the horse itself, but everything else that goes along with it, just like I mentioned before. Most horseless parents don't really consider that, so they were smart to even think about that. A real, true horse girl is a determined girl. Nothing will stand in the way of our dreams, including money or the thought of having to work hard. I mean, if you're a true horse girl, the thought of scooping poop sounds like a great time if it comes out of the butt of a horse, okay? I would do that all day, every day. If I had my own barn, if I had my own pony when I was a kid. I would have gotten up at the crack of dawn every day if I had had an opportunity to do that. Eventually we get what we want. I remember when our financial situation finally changed, my mom told me that she was buying me not one, but 2 Arabians. I was over the moon. I had no clue what I was doing, but there was no happier person on earth right then scooping manure than me. I was also in marching band at that time and was always known as the horse girl. My friends would ask me if I'd want to get something to eat before practice, but they knew I'd always say no. Let me guess, you have to go feed the horses, was what they would say to me every day. They'd roll their eyes and smile at me, and I'd say, yep, and I was always happy to do it too. Chapter 8. I started this out by saying boys are dumb, and they are. Not always, and I mean, we can be dumb too as girls, but they always say that we're the ones that make things complicated, but for real? I like that Ryan had good intentions here, but he should have just been honest to begin with. And when he found out that his friend was bowing out, asking Susan to the banquet, he should have told him tough luck and asked her to go anyway. I like that he didn't want to step on his friend's toes, but if I liked someone enough, I would have asked them out if my friend wasn't going to, or at least asked my friend if their true intentions before making a move. And on top of that, if Ryan liked her enough to send a Valentine, why did he not talk to her after his friend dissed her? It just doesn't make any sense. So yeah, boys are so stupid. And chapter 9, if there is one thing that horses are good at, it's showing you where you're lacking in your skills. They will humble you faster than any human will. That is my only thought for that chapter. In chapter 10, in life we all grow and change. There's always something new to learn, especially where horses are concerned. I liked Susan describing her first jumping lesson, especially the part where she said, through that experience and countless similar jumping sessions, I slowly learned the irony of equitation, riding best by doing the least. The way to be a great rider was to be balanced and breathe. It's true, and yet it seems too simple to be so. Why is it that when we think about these things, but then when we're actually on the backs of our horses, there's so many things to keep in your mind, like don't pull on their mouth, sit up straight, shoulders back, heels down, do this to cue that, do this to cue this. Like there's just so many things that you have to think about, and you just have to be balanced and breathe. I like that. And chapter 11 I thought was interesting. Out of all the dates, I thought this one seemed like the most fun, actually. But one thing about guys, they don't have to think bad thoughts about going out to a secluded property and immediately think the worst. Although the pie war was cute, I have to say, it was cute. It was a super cute idea. It was very inventive and different. Though I've never been on a date where you fling pie at each other, I think that it would be a great way to really see the person, or who the person you were dating was. Are you laid back and fun, or staunch and proper? You don't like to get dirty. You don't like to get dirt under your nails. So a great way to see if you're compatible for sure. I really thought that Susan was going to say that the sister was behind the barn doors holding on to 6 horses and that she absolutely fell in love with whomever had planned the date. Like, how is this going to go? Yeah. So if you're a guy and you're watching this video for whatever reason, pie date is great fun idea, but don't make your date feel uncomfortable by literally taking them out to a secluded place where they feel like they're gonna get murdered. Okay, just food for that. Pie for thought. Chapter 13. I think every horse girl has the moment that is just utterly etched in her mind of a bad fall. Although I like my nose. I can't say that a fall from a horse has ever paid for plastic surgery. I did have a hip replacement, but not because of falling from a horse. And needless to say, I have seen Susan Friedland in real life. She is a very pretty lady. I doubt the fact that she got a nose job was the reason for her having unexpected attention from gentlemen. Although I can imagine being a girl that it would definitely make one feel more confident about oneself, which can be appealing to the opposite sex. In chapter 14, I'm so jealous of this chapter. I would love to do something like this. But going on a horseback riding vacation over the moors of Ireland with friends sounds so amazing. Going on a horseback riding vacation anywhere sounds amazing, to be honest. I've never done anything of the sort, and maybe that needs to be rectified. I don't know. First, I need to find some horse-loving girls that would do it with me. So, any of you ladies out there that are fun and super laid back and looking for horse friends, hit me up. We're going on vacation. Part 4, Chapter 15. Paris sounds lovely, though I've never had an inkling to go to France. I've heard so many mixed reviews as far as the Parisians and the service, basically that they hate Americans, which makes sense. I mean, culturally, we're so very, very different. That and it seems like such a huge touristy type place and crowded, and those two things alone sound horrible to me. I am not one that likes crowded places because I feel like when people get into crowds, they lose their manners, they lose their morals. They like to push, they like to shove, and it's not a fun time. And I'm just weird about that kind of stuff. And especially if I go to a place where there's a lot of history and reading, like going to Ellis Island was huge. I thought it was such a cool place, but people are constantly pushing you and you don't have time to like stop and actually read and take it in. And so when I go places, if it's super crowded, that is not my scene. Though from the sound of this chapter, it sounds pretty amazing going to France. And so maybe I shouldn't write it off completely. When she was talking to Colton about Germany, that was more my jam. I have some German heritage and so does my husband. So we've been trying to learn the language a little bit. And I hope someday to travel there and see a little bit of my roots. In chapter 16, I felt like Susan was super brave in this chapter for going to a horse show alone. That takes so much courage. Even as a seasoned writer, I think it would definitely feel off to not have at least one person there to support you. You know those Facebook videos of the close-up of the little kid at the choir concert who's like warily scanning the crowd and they look terrified or they look really upset because they're alone. They just feel alone. And then you see the moment that they actually see their parents or their loved one or whoever, and their whole face just lights up and changes. And yeah, that is the thought that came to mind whenever Susan said that she saw her friends. I thought that was really sweet. Showing up for people matters. It just does. It says, you're important to me and I love you. It's such a simple thing to just show up somewhere, but it can mean absolutely everything to the person that you showed up for. So keep that in mind. Also, shame on the lady in the show office for being snide about someone's horse. It's a horse show. There's going to be horses that whinny. There's going to be horses that act bad. They're scared. They're in a place that they're not used to. Like, you're at a horse show. What do you expect? Horses whinny. Instead of being a jerk, why not go out and see if the person with the horse that's whinnying needs help in some way? Maybe they're scared or embarrassed. Again, a stranger showing up to help, especially if they're helping to put on the show, would mean a lot more to someone than complaining about them being there. That horse that was carrying on had an owner who was paying good money to support your show. If you don't want them there, then why are you putting on the show to begin with? If you put on shows, or if you're on a board or something like that, keep that in mind. Don't be a jerk. Support the people that support your show. If you don't, your show is not going to be around for very long because people aren't going to want to spend their money there. I was really glad that this chapter ended on a good, happy note for Susan and DC's sake. There's nothing worse than feeling uneasy in a situation to begin with and then other people making it worse. So I was glad that she had a good show despite it all and came out on top, especially with her friends there to support her. In chapter 17, navigating the world of relationships is hard. You're always trying to surmise how the other person feels. Do they like me? Do they think I'm pretty? Am I being too forward? Am I not being forward enough? I'm really grateful that I only dated a couple of guys before I started dating my husband, and I caught a good one early on. I am a super lucky lady. Dating and I'm awkward. I just am. I can't help it. That's just the way that I am. Chapter 18. Again, boys are dumb. Come on. Why not just tell the truth? Why do things have to be complicated? Men endured indeed. What a horrible situation to be in. Though I think I would have been over the relationship as soon as he had asked me to climb out the window. I mean, what in the world? Also, as far as the other girl is concerned, I feel as though I'm an uncomplicated person. You want to cheat on me? Cool. Bye. You're not worth the effort it takes to go out to your house and get confrontational. Although I think the lady did Susan a favor by showing her what a pig Jeff truly was. Because who knows? I mean, she could have been in that relationship for a while because he seemed like such a sweet guy, but in the end was definitely not. Chapter 19. What an intriguing life this lady has already lived. I've met new people before, but I don't have any stories this good. The part about the uncle dying, while tragic, had me absolutely laughing. I think if I was the uncle looking down on the situation, I'd probably be laughing too. One other thought, even just now, just having it, even if you don't have somebody, like society puts all of these pressures on us to get married and have babies, and you know, your babies have babies and they just push and they push and they push. It's like, as soon as you get married, when are you having kids? Nobody just lets you live. I mean, I can understand that this is something that Susan wanted, and most girls do, and most men do. They want to get married, they want to find the person that they want to spend the rest of their life with, and they want to have a family, and that's good. But I have to say that she lived an amazing life before, like leading up to her finding her husband in the end. She lived her life. She didn't just survive, she thrived, she traveled, she did all these really cool things. And there aren't too many people in the world that can say that. I mean, and now she's this accomplished author and she travels all over. So I just, you know, no matter where you're at in your life, whether you're looking for the right person or, you know, whatever, don't let people push you. Don't be pushed into something that you're not ready for, or don't be pushed into a relationship that you don't feel right about, because if you don't know what's going to be beyond the bend, you might meet some really cool people or travel to a really cool place that you wouldn't have otherwise. So, I don't know. That's just my thought. Now we're up to part 5, chapter 20. And I have to ask about some married people talk about how when they first met their beloved, they immediately knew he or she was the one. When pressed, they never explain how, instead offering, when it happens to you, you'll know, passage. I didn't have that with my husband. He was a very good friend. And he asked me out 3 times, and 3 times I said no. It was only after prayer and a little bit of jealousy, knowing that friends were trying to hook him up with someone else, that I came to my senses. I guess the moment of you just know came much later in my case. So my question is, did you know the moment that you met your spouse that they were the one? Also, at this point in the book, with the way Shane is being slightly odd about not being romantic in the least as far as holding Susan's hand or trying to kiss her, I feel like he is indeed not the one here. Chapter 21, there's nothing better than going back to your roots, especially when you feel listless in life. Nothing beats the crossroads of America, aka the Midwest. But seriously though, how have Susan and Shane spent so much time together at this point, but there's still been no idea of whether or not they're together yet? Chapter 22. Okay, how are you a grown man with an unreliable vehicle, but you're not willing to get something that is reliable, especially when you're dating someone an hour away from you, or dating someone? I would get a little put out that I was the only one putting the effort into the relationship here. Even more so that if someone made me late to my friend's wedding because I had to pick them up and then got stuck in traffic. Just a thought. But I've been in a relationship where I was the one that was pulling all the weight. I was the one paying for dates. I was the one picking them up. I was the one that was always going to them. And eventually, it took me a while, but I figured out that this is how it's going to be for the rest of your life. You are not cherished. You are cherishing somebody that is not cherishing you. This is not worth it. Get out now. And I did. So if you're in a relationship where they are not willing to go 10 feet for you, but you're willing to go a mile for them, they are not the one for you. Finally, she made a move and asked him straight out if they were just friends. I felt like she got strung along so much in this relationship. The part where Susan said, the reality of living back in Illinois was not turning out as I'd hoped. Things hadn't yet fallen into place, so this relationship had to work because there was so much promise. And if it didn't, I would really be alone. I don't understand what is so wrong with being alone. Granted, I know a lot of you out there would be like, but you're married, so you don't get it. I do. I haven't been married my whole life, and dating was always really awkward for me. So I didn't do too much of it. Even now, I hear of people that don't like to go to places alone, like going to the movies or going out to eat by themselves. Why not? I love my husband, but I like to do things by myself sometimes, you know. I like going out to eat by myself, to people watch or read. I love going to the movies alone because I can have my popcorn any way that I want. And I can choose whatever movie I want to watch. I don't have to think about, well, my husband liked this or, I mean, granted, I could get my own tub of popcorn, but those things cost like $500. No. All of that to say that I'd much rather be alone in my own company than be in the company of someone who is A, stringing me along, or B, making me feel bad about myself. And anyway, I spent the majority of this chapter screaming in my head, get out of this relationship already! You are worth so much more than this guy is giving you, and you're giving him way too many chances. Also, being a cat, horse, dog lady sounds pretty wonderful to me. I mean, unconditional love, unconditional love, unconditional love. Well, where the cat and dog are concerned, no, even then. Cat loves you when it wants to love you, i.e. my cat right now is rubbing on my legs. Dog, unconditional love. Horses, really great therapist, unconditional love, but sometimes act like turds. But still, cat, horse, dog lady sounds really great. Speaking of being a cat lady, here's my cat. This is Dexter, although he's not a fan of being held, so. Okay, moving right along into chapter 24. Okay, horse girlies. The comment about how awful it is to try to ride in the winter in the Midwest and trying to warm up DC's bit in her hands before putting it in his mouth. What are your hacks for warming up your bit? I have two. I used to unzip my coat and put my horse's entire bridle in there before I started grooming so that by the time I was ready to ride and put his bridle on, it was nice and warmed up for my body heat. And two, speaking of being a cat lady, I actually bought something called a bit warmer, which is this little thing that's full of rice. You put it in the microwave for a minute or two, and then you put it around your bit, and it warms up while you're grooming. And then by the time you're ready to put it in your horse's mouth, it's nice and toasty. And my horse Tino loved it. So I recommend getting a bit warmer, as long as you can remember to put it in the microwave before you go out to the barn. Susan's friend Ross is a voice of reason here. He's a dude, and he knows that Shane is stringing Susan along. When she wrote, I protested that Shane and I were meant to be together. Girl, seriously, you've been dating for seemingly about a year at this point, and he hasn't even kissed you. You may think you're meant to be together, but he most assuredly does not. Every girl deserves a man in their life that is absolutely crazy about her, not someone who is willing to string you along. Not her getting back online and logging into her dating profile just to see Shane's dating profile was still active with a picture that she took of him on it. If she doesn't run away at this point, I was done reading this book. So I was really glad after reading the chapter that the guy finally got his due and she dumped him. And now I could finish the book because I really hate starting a new book and not finishing it. Chapter 25. How is it that when we're so blinded sometimes in relationships that we desperately want to work, but everyone around us can see that it's no good, but we can't? How is that a thing? One thing I loved about this chapter was Susan's friend Ali's mother and wife being hype girls to a heartbroken lady. Every girl needs a hype girl. The Turkish coffee part made me smile. I used to work with a girl from Iraq who made me some Turkish coffee once. She was absolutely adamant that I try it, so I did. And I'm a coffee snob. I like the bitterness of the coffee, but I have to have cream and sugar, or sorry, cream and Splenda, okay? I've tried multiple times to like black coffee, even giving it like a month. And I'd rather not drink it. I mean, I have to have cream and Splenda, okay? I told my friend at work that I don't like black coffee. I have to have cream and Splenda. And she was like, no, that's improper. You don't put cream and sugar in Turkish coffee. And I was like, okay, I'll try it. So I did. Where Susan said that Turkish coffee tasted like cigarette butts, I thought it tasted like pine needles. It has a very earthy taste. And I think that it's something that is an acquired taste, maybe. I don't know. While I wasn't a fan of Shahad's Turkish coffee, she made some bomb baklava, and now I can't eat it anywhere else. It's that good. So she's ruined me in that way. And I guess I'm kind of glad, because I like my coffee the way I like my coffee. I think it was sweet that Ali could see his friend had a broken heart, and in just offering her good, warm company, he knew that he could help her recover from it. And it sounds as though she did. So good, real friends are so hard to come by, especially people that can just look at you and know, and just, they don't try to fix you. They don't try to offer words of encouragement. It's just, they just offer their company, and that is super special. Last note on this chapter, Susan going home, specifically the part where she said, I flipped on the light and the tap-tapping of dog toenails on hardwood coming from the living room signaled I was loved, and in time everything would be okay. Even now, reading these notes, it makes me want to cry. I just lost my dog a few weeks before I read this chapter, and I bawled like a baby. It makes me want to cry now, even thinking about it. Hold on. So yeah, this chapter just utterly destroyed me. But it's true, those little nail taps become everything because of the sweet soul that they're attached to, and who is always there to make everything better. And then when they're gone, it hurts so very badly. And I cried so hard reading that part, because it's true, they do make everything better. They love with everything that they are. So now that that part's out of the way, thanks Susan for making me cry. Moving on to chapter 26. Again, why does love blind us so? Starting this chapter, Susan writes, I still fantasized Shane would come to his senses and reach out to me, saying he realized he couldn't live without me. Girl, that guy did not deserve you after the first date. I hope that in reality, that fantasizing would end with, so I could tell him, I'm glad that you finally realized that. It's way too late. You taught me I'm way too good for you. Bye, Felicia. I had a thought here. I wanted to shake Susan's shoulders and tell her, can't you see what all of these men that you've dated have in common? They're stepping stones showing you what you can live without and what you can't, to prepare you for the one man that will check every box and treat you the way that you deserve. But then I thought, though it's easy for someone on the outside looking in to see things, haven't we all been hung up on a boy for way too long? Who are we to judge? Who am I to judge her? In the end, there's a very real person on the opposite side of these words, putting her heart out there on display, which takes so much courage to do. People can be so horribly mean. So to rectify that, I'm going to tell you the embarrassing story about me being hung up on a boy. And should you feel the need to do so in the comments, let us know. When I was in 8th grade, I had the biggest crush on a guy named Kevin who was in band with me. I thought he was adorable, and every goofy thing that he did was funny. I thought he had the cutest grin, and everything he did, I absolutely fawned over. All through 8th grade and 9th grade, I crushed hard on him. I never talked to the guy. I was not confident and terrified I'd say the wrong thing and he would think I was a total dweeb. He knew that I liked him though, and yet he never tried to talk to me. I finally came to my senses after passing him in the hallway between classes while he was talking to a buddy who, after he saw me looking in their direction, started giving him a hard time about it. My crush looked at me with an irritated look and rolled his eyes as if to say, "That girl is not worth my time." And that was all that it took for me to realize that he wasn't actually cute. He was a jerk, and he wasn't nice. He thought he was better than me and acted like it. All of the goofy things he did were in actuality massively immature for his age. After I came to that realization, I was able to let it go and move on, but I learned a huge lesson in that, and I never fantasized over a boy I liked that treated me poorly ever again. So I guess I should thank him for helping me to see my self-worth. The Turkish bath, though sounding very lavish, is not something that I could do. I remember there was only one girl in middle school that actually took a full-on naked shower after PE, and that was not me. The rest of us stood there awkwardly, changing back into our school clothes. I'm still that girl. I would never be able to do that. When she gets the email from Shane, I read the line where he writes, "How would I begin an email to you to say hello? I guess I would start it with, 'Hello, Susan,' quotation mark, period." In the book, the period is outside of the quotation marks, and as an editor, it made me cringe big time. I hate reading books that have grammar issues. I can't even focus when there's a grammar issue. And I was like, dude, Susan, really? I thought you were a teacher. Your grammar, like, what? Luckily, she followed it up with, "Doesn't he know the period goes inside the quotation marks?" That's my girl. So see, Susan, he definitely was not worth your time if he can't adhere to the proper rules of grammar. That's all I'm going to say about that. Finally, she goes to email him back, but says, "The guy had strung me along for months and months. I had no need for niceties." Yeah. My well of graciousness had dried up months earlier. Yeah, girl. Yeah. Chapter 27. The Quinn guy sounds like a complete nut. From the moment Susan told him that her dog didn't like feet, and he tried to pet the dog with his feet anyway, I would have been throwing his butt out of my house. I hate when people are obstinately disrespectful, especially when they're in your home. That's like a just automatic no. Maybe it's me getting older, I don't know, but I feel like my time is very precious, and who I spend it with is very precious. So if you're gonna automatically be an obstinate jerk like that, that is just like a no. Bye. Get out of my life. You're toxic. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I don't know. In chapter 28, I wasn't really sure if the guy's name was pronounced Tanner or Tanner or Tanner. Maybe Susan can clear that up for us someday. I don't know. But just for giggles, I'm going to call him Tanner. So first note in this chapter, when Susan and Tanner go to the beach and he scoops her up and twirls her around, she says, "It felt like we were in a Nicholas Sparks novel." I would not want to be in a Nicholas Sparks novel. They never end well. They always end up sad in some way, or somebody passes away. Like, I stopped reading his books. My heart broke for her that her relationship with Tanner didn't work out. I totally get the Christian Muslim thing. I feel like there would be too many arguments and not seeing eye to eye. Scripture even says not to be unevenly yoked, so I think she was wise for her decision. But at the same time, he sounded like he was the first man to actually treat her well and love her, so I felt sad for her. But I'm glad that she used it to bolster herself instead of retreating into herself again. Chapter 29, sometimes it feels nice and safe to go back to a familiar place where you're loved by your friends. And in this instance, it helped to create some clarity. Safe places tend to do that. Missionary work seems crazy. I can't imagine being somewhere where they don't use TP. My hat is off to her friend Amy, but at least she got to watch Little House on the Prairie. I always feel like it's so weird. Like, you don't have TP, but you have Little House on the Prairie? What? Also, I'm not a camper. I mean, I want to camp. I love nature, but I want to camp in a place where there's a toilet that flushes. I'm not one to dig a hole I mean, if that's what they do, I don't know. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I mean, if I absolutely had to, I would. But then I'd be worried that everybody was watching me from somewhere. Like, you know, you're in this wide open place. I don't know how I got off on such a tangent. I'm so sorry. Now we move into part 6, chapter 30. I love that in this chapter at the horse show, she says, I thought of how happy I was to be home and brushed away our uncertain future by living in the moment. And man, I wish we could all do that more often. Troubles are always going to find a way to wreak havoc, but thinking of tomorrow's worries today never did anyone any good. She goes on by saying, riding a horse is the practice of being in the moment. In fact, when you're around a horse, there is no time to worry about external problems looming insurmountably. Horses give their humans a mini vacation, a respite from life's troubles. And it's so true. Horses are perfect mirrors of their owners. If you feel anxious, they're anxious. If you're scared, they're scared. If you're relaxed, they're relaxed. And then, I mean, not a full-on grown adult making a child feel insignificant. I mean, come on. What is wrong with us? Horse people, you gotta do better. Why can't we just encourage each other and leave the egos at the door? It's one thing for a grown adult to say things to another grown adult, but an adult to a child? I mean, you shouldn't say things from one adult to another anyway, unless it's something encouraging. Like, be encouraging. Why do we have to hate on each other? Why can't we just lift each other up? I mean, if you go out there and give it your all, you're gonna win or you're gonna lose. What does it matter? It's a 5-cent ribbon. Why do you have to be so mean? Don't be mean. Don't be mean to kids. Don't be mean to adults. We're all just trying to be our best version of a writer that we can be. Like, my question is, what happened to the trainer in her childhood that made her feel insignificant enough to basically tell a child she wasn't good enough to be in Pony Club? I mean, what kind of trauma is there? So let's end the generational trauma, peeps. Leave it at the door. I loved the end of that paragraph, though. I found out later the same trainer who smashed my girlhood dream had been working toward competing in the Olympics. She never made it. Apparently she wasn't good enough. You know what they say about karma. The end of this chapter made me a little bit sad when Susan says, I had no idea this was to be the last horse show I would enjoy with Adonis. I just recently retired my own horse due to a chronic leg issue, and as the vet was telling me that he would no longer be rideable, the only thing that I could think of was, I wish that I had known that the last ride was the last ride. It just makes me so sad. I don't even remember it. I don't remember the last ride that I had on Tino, and I probably would have enjoyed it more. I would have taken pictures. I don't know. It just made me so sad. Your book's making me sad. Chapter 31. Though all of us wish for a rich man to sweep us off of our feet, ultimately, money is no match for good chemistry. I loved Susan's friend Dana's take on her situation of dating Tony. Girl, that would be one cold, lonely house. I think you need hot love in a shack somewhere instead of no chemistry in a marble mansion. Don't settle. Sounds like a great friend with great advice. Chapter 32. I like the way that she starts going on about dating in this chapter when she says, it all boiled down to one question. Do I want him to kiss me? If the answer was no, then I probably should save time for both of us and end things early. I think that's a great way to gauge a date, because if there's no chemistry there, there's not really much point in pursuing it, you know? Why waste time? I was a little sad reading the part where she said, I wasn't so sure that this was the way to go in talking to God about my desire for a future husband. I didn't want to be like the spoiled kid telling Santa what she wanted. Girl, God cares about the little things. He cares about the things that we care about. He cares about the things that are important to us, especially something as important as the person that we share our life with. That's huge. I went through the same thing with my husband, thinking he was such a good friend, and I didn't want to ruin that. After a year of knowing how wonderful he was, I finally prayed about it, and God gave me the answer. Now, we've been married for 15 years. He's still my best friend, and I love him more today than I did when we got married. Prayer is important, especially where relationships are concerned. Chapter 33. Yes! She finally finds her guy, and he sounds perfect. I like that they went through counseling to make sure they both understood each other. It's very responsible and smart, trying to do everything that you can to make sure that your marriage is a success before it even happens. I love it. Chapter 34, I thought the way that he proposed was super cute. And I have to say, it's lucky for her to literally fall in love with the first wedding dress that she tried on. I was not that lucky. I was very lucky in love, but not lucky in my choice of dress. I took several dresses in a few days. I loved the rainbow bit after they said their vows. God is always good. He knows what our hearts desire and he wants us to be happy. And it's hard trying to wait on his timing, but his timing is always perfect. So I really loved the sign of the covenant there. I thought that was so sweet. Chapter 35, I can't even with this chapter. I have never lost a horse, but I have lost 2 very cherished dogs, and it ripped my heart out both times. I hated it when she wrote, I found my life partner in human form and now had lost my horse partner who had been there for me for 16 years of my singleness. I had the same thought when I lost my dog Sasha a few weeks ago. Like, she's been there for so many things, and the thought of, like, I'm getting ready to turn 40 at the end of this month, and the thought of her not being there for, you know, the future and, like, the milestones in the future is really hard to swallow. And of all the things that she had been through with me and all the things that I have yet to face without my girl by my side just breaks my heart. It's hard to envision a future without our beloveds in it, though they'll always be in our hearts. Chapter 36, reading DC's obituary was sad. He really was quite a lovely boy. The pictures that she shows in the book, he was beautiful. And it sounds as though he was very loved for a very long time. I loved Susan's friend's response to it. You could add up all of the costs and expenses of keeping them over the years, but their friendship is priceless. And I couldn't say it better myself. In chapter 37, I'm really glad that she found Knight. He sounds like a perfect gentleman. And what she said at the end of the chapter, I knew in that November moment, in the stillness of a Southern California evening, with an audience of horses in their pipe corrals, chewing bedtime hay, rabbits skittering at the arena's edge, here in the saddle with Knight, I was home. And my prayers have been answered again. I love a good happy ending, don't you? And then of all, they have, she puts a list of book club questions at the end of her book, which I thought was really nice because a lot of books don't do that. Obviously, I didn't go by the book club discussion questions that she had, but I read through them all, and one of them really stood out. Do you view horses as God's apology for men? Why or why not? I would love to hear your views on this one, but I think it depends on the lady. You're bound to say yes if you've had a bad experience with men, and no if you haven't. Personally, I just view horses as God's way of giving us good friends that we can count on no matter what. I've said it before and I'll say it until my dying day, they are the best therapists for man and woman alike. They show you your shortcomings, they keep your secrets, and they humble you every time you're with them. So yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was really cute. I loved that she put her faith throughout the book. You don't really find that too much nowadays. And I'm really glad that she eventually found her guy through all of the things that she went through in her life. And not only that, but she found her horse guy at the end too, and that's just as important. It's important to find a good partner, like human and horse alike. So I hope you liked this video. Please leave your thoughts and opinions. What was your favorite part? Can you relate to any of this book at all? Why or why not? Just, you know, just leave your thoughts in the comments below. And feel free to like this video. It really helps me out to get seen by other people. And if you're interested, there will be more book discussions in the future. Just make sure to subscribe to the channel so you know when there's something new. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.